الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So tonight inshallah we'll continue our lesson in discussing the book Al-Mulakis Al-Fiqhi by Shaykh Salih Al-Fawzan Hafidullah, and we're discussing Kitab Al-Salat, and the chapter that we're discussing specific is Fi Ahkam Janaiz, so discussing concerning matters that relates to Al-Janaiz, and the previous lessons that we have covered concerning Taqsil Al-Mayt, and also we discussed concerning matters that relates to At-Takfeen, and also matters that relates to of the ahkam that relates to shrouding of the deceased. So today inshallah we'll go to what is the fifth bab in this particular discussion, which is ahkam salat al-mayt. Aywa, tafaddal.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah. Qala ma'allif hafidahullah. Chapter 30, Death and Burial, page number 305. Fifthly, rulings on the funeral prayer. After washing and shrouding the deceased, the funeral prayer is to be performed over him. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, whoever attends the funeral procession until he performs the funeral prayer for it will get a reward equal to 1 qirat, and whoever accompanies it until burial will get a reward equal to 2 qirats. It was asked, what are 2 qirats? He, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, they are like 2 huge mountains of reward. Related by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. Performing the funeral prayer over the deceased is a collective duty. If performed by some of those in the neighborhood of the deceased, the rest of them will not be accountable for it. It is still an act of the Sunnah to be observed by the rest of them. Yet, if all abandon it, it will be a sin upon them all.
Aywa. So the author, Hafidullah, he discussed concerning of those matters that relates to Ahkam al-Janaiz is regarding As-Salat al-Mayt, which is Salat al-Janaza. So of those things, that is a part of the acts that relates to the deceased is regarding praying over the deceased. So we mentioned, the discussion in this particular bab is to discuss concerning how to go about performing this particular salat and ahkam that relates to it. So the author rahimahullah, hafidullah, he starts from there, ثُمَّ تُشْرَعْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ الصَّلَاةِ عَلَى الْمَيْتِ الْمُسْلِمِ. So we'll be starting concerning the ahkam of janazah, that certain things were preceded, which regarding concerning one, ghusl of the maid, washing of the deceased, then takfeen, then also shrouding of the deceased, and now we'll move on to the next practice, which is the salat to be performed over the deceased. So regarding concern of this ahkam that he mentioned, one, that the salat is done after those other things are completed. Then he mentioned the first hadith of Abu Hurairah anhu, relating to the regarding concerning that the reward for the person who participated in the salat of the deceased, and also the person who attended his burial. So the person was involved regarding praying over him, and also the person who attends regarding the person being buried. Then this is the reward concerning qirat or qiratan, that the person will receive this degree or level or this amount of reward, as mentioned in hadith, that is in Bukhari and Muslim. Then the next thing the author Hafidullah, he discussed concerning matter relating to the hukum of Salat al-Janaza. So the hukum was the Islamic ruling on Salat al-Janaza being performed. So he mentioned Salat al-Mayt, Fard Kifaya, that the hukum that with the of the ulama and Nawawi and others had mentioned that they are all the view concerned that praying over the deceased is something which is Fard Kifaya. It's a collective communal responsibility. So it is wajib upon the Muslim, some of the Muslim to perform this, and so it's compulsory upon some of the Muslim to perform this. If not done by at all, then all are sinful. So I mentioned that it is Fard Kifaya. Then إذا فعلها بعض, if it is done by some, سقط الإثم على باقين. If it is done by some, then the sin is removed upon all. The ulama discussed concerning of mentioning that is fard kifaya, how many people would fulfill this requirement? How many people consider to be if it is done? So they mentioned that if it is done by one male or one female, then this collective duty has been completed or been fulfilled. So if it is completed by one male or one female, that is adult, Muslim adult, male or female, then this communal duty is fulfilled. So any number above this is considered to be, which is mustahab or sunnah. So the more people added to this, that's considered to be mustahab, sunnah. That's concerning that matter. But if it is left, then all fall into a sin. And concerning that, they come to the conclusion regarding as-salat being fard kifaya, where Islam mentioned hadith, I mentioned sallu ala sahibikum, that you should pray upon your companions, as concerned the hadith concerned a person with his dain, and the hadith in the Bukhari. So that's concerning this matter. Also they mention that in so you have other adillah that is mentioned, but the general that the ruling it is fard kifaya. Aywa.
The conditions of the funeral prayer. Number 1, intention. One must have the intention of performing it. Number 2, facing the Qibla. Number 3, concealing one's aura when performing it. Number 4, the ritual purity of both the one performing it and the deceased. Number 5, avoidance of any physical impurity. Number 6, both the one performing it and the deceased must be Muslims. Number 7, attending the funeral procession after offering the funeral prayer if they are in the neighborhood. Number 8, being legally accountable.
So amongst the Hanabila, in the books of the Hanabila and Mukhtasarat, that they can somewhat summarize concerning that as for shurut salatul janaza, that these shurut, that these conditions, that they are thamaniya. So amongst the Hanabila, that they take the view that salatul janaza, it comprises of 8 shurut, and has been mentioned concerning of those shurut concerning an-niyya, istiqbal al-qibla, satr al-awra, taharat al-musalli wa musalli alayh, ijtinab al-najasa, islam al-musalli wa musalli alayh, hudur al-janaza in kanat bil-balad, and also mention kawn al-musalli mukallifan. So those are the conditions that they mention regarding that these are the 8 conditions that should be fulfilled in carrying out a salatul janaza. So in brief, you find that these are the general conditions that are mentioned regarding a salat, because the ulama, the majority of the ulama, that they're all concerning that salatul janaza is a salah. Based upon that it starts, so all the conditions that are required for a salat also is required for salatul janaza, because it starts with takbir, and also it ends with taslim. So any salah that is referred to as salat that begins with or starts with taslim, starts with takbir and ends with taslim, then it is referred to as a salah. And the rules of salat then applies to it. So salatul janaza, that they apply the rules of salat to it, even though it does not consist of ruku wa sujood. So of those things that salatul janaza has to be discussed, does not consist, would entail matters regard concerning as ruku and sujood. The person will stand throughout the salat as to be discussed. So they mention concerning an-niyya, the person doesn't per se have to, so they mention an-niyya. Then they mention istiqbal al-qibla, as known, satr al-awra, that the person, whether male or female, that their certain parts of their body are covered, regarding concerning tahara of the person who's praying. So of those conditions, that the one who's praying and the one who's being praying over, that they must both as to be in a state of tahara. And the least concerning if they are the least tayammum for both. So least tayammum for both. They mention ijtinab al-najasa, so that area being clean and pure from najasa. Islam, another condition I mentioned, Islam al-musalli wal-musalla alayhi. So also concerned that also the person who is performing the salat must be Muslim. And the one being prayed over the deceased also must be Muslim. So the conditions are those who are praying, making the salat of janazah, of the condition that that individual must be Muslim. And likewise with a male or female, as female also can participate in salatul janazah. So the person praying must be Muslim, and the one being prayed over upon also is Muslim. Of those things that are a point regarding concern in our time or in our environment here concerning the West, that I've sometimes just to confirm, especially concerning the person who's praying, is he a Muslim? Because you might find cases where a person who's said to be Muslim, but he's not known to have any of the practice of Islam. He doesn't attend, he doesn't pray, he doesn't fast, and it goes back again concerning that Tariq al-Salat, the one who does not pray, is he deemed to be a Muslim or not? So sometimes I find it a person, you have cases, especially those cases where a person that we have those cases where a person took his shahada, supposedly took his shahada, and especially those people who are they're very ill, took the shahada in that condition, and then, but after then, as you find, they are not known to have ever prayed since then. Took the shahada, but it's not known that that person ever made one salat. And this may go for months, it goes for weeks, but that person have never prayed. But they took the shahada. And that person, because of their illness, they might die a few months after. Is that person to be prayed upon?
Are they ill in which way? Mentally or physically?
Mentally or physically?
Yeah.
Meaning?
Mentally.
Not a person of sound mind.
Oh, sound mind.
Sound mind, but he's ill, concerned not he's ill, but he have an illness which is very terminal. That is not expected a person could die months or soon after. But he still have his faculties regarding his mind. So he took his shahada, but that person may even gone home. But the person, since the time that he took his shahada or her, is not known that they have ever prayed.
Could you say that basically if they have the intention to pray due to the illness, they couldn't?
Now says that, so we have the person having the intention to pray, but still didn't pray, hasn't prayed. So it's not just enough to have the intention regarding salah, the person needs to go through the ritual of salah, or the act of salah. So certain acts that the person, I intend to fast, but never fast. Then he hasn't fast, in reality. So certain thing concerning salat is required for the person to actually physically do the act, according to his ability. So if he's ill, he's still required to pray. But he pray according to his condition, but he's still required to pray. So the thing is that though, the person is known that he has not prayed. Or the person take his shahada and he's on road, as they say.
And he had the knowledge of the salah?
Then he has the knowledge concerned that salat is wajib.
No. So he knows how to carry it out by Qawl Amal.
So that matter regarding concerning, so that go back and said the person took his shahada, ill or on road, but have not prayed. But he knows that salat is wajib. Now, whether the person knows to pray or not, that's a different matter. If he doesn't know to pray, then he needs to be taught. And he should make the effort. Now, but the thing is that the person took his shahada at a certain time, but died after, months after, a year after, but that person have never prayed. But we were there when he took his shahada. But he has not what? Ever prayed. A salah. Is that person? So the person died. So the Muslims said that we should pray over him. Is this person deserving to be prayed over? No. Because he's not a Muslim. So in reality, he's not a Muslim. So taking the shahada, it comes with requirements. And there's things that they are not in place, it can invalidate the shahada. So of those things with the person, the shahada, of those things that is required, he prays when the time comes, he fasts. So those of the pillars of Islam. So most of the person did not pray. We emphasize the person did not ever prayed, he's not a Muslim.
What if they fast but don't pray?
He's still not a Muslim. That if the person did pray some of the salah, he was known that he prayed, sometime he prayed but didn't pray all 5, then still technically Muslim. According to Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. But the person who does not pray at all, So we're talking about a person who has not prayed. Or a person could be Muslim for a while in their life, born up with a Muslim family, then go on road as they say, or dunya, get caught up in the dunya. And they stop praying. They stop praying completely. Not even Salatul Eid, not Salatul Jummah, not Ramadan, as I say, even June Ramadan, and that person dies. Is that person to be prayed upon? Then the same thing applies. The fact that the person has left Salat completely, then there's no Salat upon such a person, or not known to have prayed, then there's no Salat upon them. So the Shahid concerned that sometimes in our environment, that these things need to be looked into. These matters need to be looked into. So the author, rahimahullah, or hafidullah, more correct, hafidullah, that I've mentioned regarding these conditions that are mentioned here. So these are the conditions that are said to be shurutu salah. That these things has to be in place for the salah to be deemed valid. So all in that? Like, طيب, ماشي. So we have some other matter that I discussed concerning that we will leave it to later regarding concerning that mentions on regarding that when I mention concerning as-salat upon deceased, in most time they're concerning a adult, male or female. But if a Sibyan, youngsters below the age of puberty. So also that if a child die also from a Muslim family, then that child is to be prayed upon. We have some other case that we will discuss later, as we mentioned regarding concerning, they said a sect or sect, which is concerning that the child who was born, stillborn. We'll discuss that later. So at the end we'll discuss some other cases concerning of those people. So we have, for example, the stillborn. We have case concerning the person who was killed in had min hudud. The person was, for example, stoned to death, or his head was chopped off, or whatever, he died. Is that person to be prayed upon? Or Ahlul Bidah? So inshallah ta'ala, at the end, we'll kind of somewhat come back and revisit some of those topics. So inshallah ta'ala, continue concerning Amma Arakan, as for the Arkanuha, aywa.
The integral parts of the funeral prayer. Number 1, standing upright. Number 2, saying 4 takbirs. Number 3, reciting the surah of Al-Fatiha. Number 4, asking Allah to confer His blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number 5, praying for the deceased. Number 6, performing these integral parts in sequence. And number 7, ending the prayer with taslim.
Then the author, Hafidullah, then discuss concerning the next matter, which is concerning matters that relates to the Arkan of Salah. So after ending concerning a shurut, then he discussed concerning Arkan, and with Hanabila, they have a Sab'ah. So the Hanabila, that they have seven Arkan that relate to the actual Salah. So concerning shurut are those things that precede the actual act of the Salah. That is to be Then as for the arkan are those things that relate to the salat itself, the actual salat. So I mentioned al-qiyam. So regarding concerning of the salat al-janaza, then of the condition that it is the person will be standing. The person should be in a standing position for the person who is able. So the one who's able is not allowed to do it sitting or moving. So the person has to be still and standing. Then I mentioned at-takbirat al-arba. So of those matters that they discuss, of those arkan is concerning takbirat al-arba. And I mentioned concerning that the ulama that as mentioned here, that all 4 takbirat is of the arkan. So all 4 takbirat is of the arkan to be discussed concerning the ulama about a discussion regarding adad takbirat as-salatul janaza. How many takbirat is allowed in salatul janaza? So majority, jumhur of the ulama, that they all at 4 takbirat. That's the call, that is 4 takbirat. Regarding concerning the cases concerning majority of the hadith that they mention regarding takbirat to salatul janazah, they mention 4. Of concerning the case of Najashi and others. that the Prophet ﷺ, that he prayed, made 4 takbirat. So Jumhur, that 4 takbirat is to be done in Salatul Janaza. Then you have a discussion regarding the permissibility and to increase on this. Is it permissible for one to add further than this? Of the ulama, all that, of the ulama, that one can do 5 takbirat. So some mention can go to 5. Then they mention, so the most that they mention, that is 7. The Hanabila, Ahmed, mention up to 7 takbirat. So you have 4, 5, 6, 7. Then Shaykh Al-Bani rahimahullah, he mentioned up to 9. That you can go up to 9 takbirat. But you find that majority of the ulama, that those who give permissibility, that they mention it goes up to 7 takbirat. So you have a discussion between the ulama regarding that. Most ahadith that mention hadith inside Muslim mention that Islam made 5 takbirat. As for 6, 7, that's more concerning af'al al-sahaba. That more goes back to the action of the Sahaba, amongst them Ali ibn Abi Talib anhu, that he made at times regarding people of Al-Badr, that he can somewhat more made 6 or 7 takbirat for Al-Badr because of their status because of their status. So that's concerning that. So Shaykh Al-Bani all concerned that that's of the Sunnah, because it was done by a Sahabi who was Ali ibn Abi Talib. And he owed that to be hukum marfu'. So concerned is the qawl of the action of the Sahabi of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It was done in the presence of others amongst the Sahaba, without anyone rejecting that act or contradicting that act. So all that it is something which becomes marfu' hukman. But general concern says mawquf ala Ali ibn Abi Talib regarding this act of 6, 7 takbirat. So that's concerning that particular matter. Then he mentioned third of those things, qira al-Fatiha. So of those conditions of the Salat al-Janaza is reciting of al-Fatiha. I would say that as for the general ruling of ulama, that you have 2 aqwal regarding the permissibility of reading al-Fatiha, or regarding the hukum regarding reading Surah al-Fatiha. So you'll find concerning that the Hanabila and also Shafi'iyya, that all it is something which is, as mentioned here, one of the Arakan of Salah, a must to be done. That all concerning Qiraat al-Fatiha is a must to be done. Then you find the Malikiyya and the Ahnaf, they are all concerned that it is not a must to read Fatiha. It is sufficient for the person to do anything that praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So any form of praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they mentioned that what is required as dua. So anything that includes or involves the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they mentioned that is sufficient. And it is not a must that one is restricted to al-Fatiha. But al-qawl ar-raji in the al-jumhur ulama, are the ulama regarding concerning qiraat al-Fatiha wajib. As Elisan qala, sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli, that you should pray as you have seen me prayed. So they mentioned that this is a part of the salat. Then Shaykh Al-Bani rahimahullah, so regarding concerning reading of Surah Al-Fatiha, then he mentioned the adillah regarding, then he mentioned regarding concerning hadith, that regarding this particular matter in the Bukhari, that mentioned Salaytu khalf ibn Abbas rata'ala anhu ala janaza faqaraha bifatat al-kitab. So he mentioned that was the Talha ibn Abdullah ibn Auf, that he said that he prayed behind Abdullah ibn Abbas in Salatul Janaza. فَقَرَهَا بِفَاتِةِ الْكِتَابِ. Then he read that the opening Surah Al-Fatiha. وَصُورَةٍ, and also a surah, which is Fatiha plus something additional from the Quran. وَجَهَرَ بِهَا حَتَّى سَمِعْنَا. So he read it aloud until we could hear. فَلَمَّا فَرَغَ أَخَذْتُ بِيَدِي. So he said when the salat ended, that I held him by his hand. فَسَأَلْتُهُ, and I asked him. فَقَالْ إنما جهرت لتعلموا أنها سنة والحق. So he mentions إنما جهرت لتعلموا أنها سنة, that والحق, that he mentioned, Ibn Abbas mentioned, I read it aloud so people can know that it's something which is to teach the people that is the part of the sunnah, or meaning sunnah concerning of the acts of the salah, of the way of all, and also it is something which is the right to be done. So he mentioned, as we mentioned, Al-Fatiha, but then he mentioned, and as between say Qawsain, open brackets, was surah. That part is there's some discussion regarding that's an additional regarding the hadith. So it needs concerning Bukhari, Abu Dawood, but there's a ziyada mentioned, was ziyadat al-ula lin-Nisa'i. So there's certain ziyada in the hadith which is from outside Bukhari and Muslim. So additional to when I mention Bukhari mentioned Al-Fatiha, the ziyada that he has said in between brackets that goes on since that was surah, and that he read it aloud, and that the person when he finished he held this and then asked him, that's something additional from the hadith of Bukhari that's in the narration of An-Nisa'i, and all that sanaduhu or sanaduha sahiha, that it mentioned the sanad is sahih. Ibn Jarud minha dhikri as-surah, and also others, Ibn Jarud, that he has a book which is a collection of hadith of Ibn Jarud, of those concerned to collect a book of hadith that he claims that it will be sahih. So it's a book which is like the size of Bulugh al-Maram, which is about hadith al-ahkam. Hadith al-ahkam. So he also mentioned concerning this particular additional. So the general shahid is regarding concerning that some narration mentioned regarding Fatiha and also a surah. That sometime would be done according to as what is mentioned here. So generally concerned that so regarding concerning Fatiha will be wajib, as for a surah will be mustahab. Ahyanan. In Sahih al-Hadith, if the hadith is authentic. So Shaykh Albani all to be authentic, and that's a credible source. But to be looked into, inshallah. Then he mentioned regarding concerning was Salat al-Nabi alayhi salam, then also of those matters that ought to be of the Arakan is regarding Salat al-Nabi alayhi salam. And we'll discuss concerning Salat to be done, or dua lil-mayt, and its supplication for the deceased, wa tartib wa taslim, and also concerning a taslim. So regarding concerning the tartib, regarding concerning that that what is to be read in a certain order. That you find that a discussion regarding that tartib, who always concerned that the Fatiha is not a must, that has to be in the first rak'ah or in the first takbirah. Some all that if it is missed and done later, then it is still accepted. So the tartib, but that's the view of some of the Hanabila. Then I mentioned taslim. So also it ends with taslim. As for taslim, that is also of those things that ulama mentioned concerning that it ends with taslim. But the discussion lies regarding that with the taslim, that is it one taslim or two taslim? It is one taslim or two taslim to be done regarding the salat. So that inshallah ta'ala we'll discuss that further regarding concerning the taslim. How many taslim to regarding the salat? How many taslim regarding the salat? Is it one or two taslim for salat al-janaza? Aywa.
The acts of the sunnah observed in the funeral prayer. Number 1, raising the hands upon saying each takbir. Number 2, seeking refuge of Allah from the accursed shaitan after reciting Al-Fatiha. Before reciting Al-Fatiha. Number 3, invoking Allah for oneself and for all Muslims. Number 4, being quiet while reciting. Number 5, having a short pause after the 4th takbir and before taslim. Number 6, putting one's right hand over the left with both of them on the chest following each takbir. Number 7, turning to the right when saying taslim.
So the author, Hafid Allah, he discussed concerning of those things, said the sunan, of those sunan act of the Salat al-Janaza, which are those acts which is concerned mentioned amongst them mentioned Rafa Yadain, ma kulli takbirah. So for every takbirah, that the person rafa yadayn. So as for the first, ijma, the first to be done. But as for the additional ones of raising of the hands, is this to be done? So you find concern the ulama that of those who hold that, of mention concern of the Hanabila, of the position that for each takbirah, the person raises his hand. Naam, and that's going to come. There's no hadith that is authentic on this, but there's some athar and Ibn Umar regarding this, which is authentic. So you have some athar and Ibn Umar regarding raising the hand for each takbirah. And then you find that others hold a second view that the person does not raise his hands for each except for the first. Allahu Akbar when he starts, and he does not raise his hand for the remaining takbirat for Salatul Janazah. And that's the view of the Ahnaf. That's the view of the Ahnaf. And Shaykh Albani, that he agrees with that view. He agrees with that view, as they mentioned, and others, that there's no hadith that is authentic regarding raising the hands. All the hadith that are mentioned there, because of marfu'an, they're daif. Naam. So he holds that athar of Ibn Umar, but concerning that qawl being an athar of Ibn Umar, then it is something which is, as the athar of the Salaf, is the next discussion concerning, is it hujjah wa laysa bi hujjah? There's a discussion between the ulama regarding concerning that, aqwal al-Salaf min al-Sahaba, concerning, that's the Salaf, so not all the Salaf, so more so regarding qawl al-Sahabi, hujjah or laysa bi hujjah. The statement or the ruling of a Sahabi and the act of a Sahabi that they discussed that put in categorization, but is a discussion regarding things done by the Sahabi of their actions or things that they say regarding matters concerning a deed, hujjah or laysa bi hujjah. So you have that discussion between the ulama, and still a discussion, those who say yes it is and those who say no. A lengthy discussion from the ulama of old and present. So regarding those all concerning that fi'l sahabi, hujjah, then they rafa yadayn. Then he mentioned regarding concerning that of those matters concerning al-isti'adha. So regarding concerning al-fatiha, of those things that normally goes with it, al-isti'adha. And second, al-basmala. So the person will say Bismillah and A'udhu Billah min ash-shaytan rajim. So those things to be said along with al-fatiha, before al-fatiha. So the person, Allahu Akbar, then he'll say al-isti'adha, and then after you say al-basmala, then he will say Surah al-Fatiha. Then I mentioned that there's no a discussion regarding ad-dua al-istiftah. Ad-dua al-istiftah, the opening dua that is said in the Salah, normally, is it to be said in Salatul Janazah. So you find concern of the ulama that they're all concerning that, and jumhur of the ulama all adam al-kirah, that it is not to be read. So the person is not to read ad-dua al-istiftah for Salatul Janazah. He goes straight into al-Fatiha and the things related to that connects with Surah al-Fatiha. Then you find that Al-Thawri wa Ahmed fi riwayah that all that it is permissible. It is permissible to read ad-dua al-istiftah, but al-raji al-sawab, that qawl al-jumhur, sawab qawl al-jumhur, that a person is not to say ad-dua al-istiftah for Salatul Janazah. So go straight into al-Fatiha after the takbir. Then I mentioned takbir at-taslim, and then concerning al-wada yadayn, concerning a person put his right over his left as he's in a position of al-qiyam, so that ala as-sadr, so that's something that is mentioned. And also al-iltifat al-yamini fi taslim, and also the person iltifat, turn his face to the right when give the taslim. So go back to the issue concerning that concerning taslim, that the author here and of the view concern of the Hanabila, that is one taslim for Salatul Janazah, one taslim for Salat al-Janazah. Where you find a view of others all that it is taslimatan, that it is two taslim regarding Salat al-Janazah. So we'll discuss that later, but you have that discussion. But the practice, if you go to place concern the haram, or see that you find that their practice that for Salatul Janazah, one taslim. Now, scholars have said that that's the method, that's the practice of the Hanabila. Even though you have riwayat, will be discussed concerning the discussion, but that's the practice of that is practice today. Aywa.
The way the funeral prayer is performed. The funeral prayer is to be performed in the following way. The Imam, the one who leads the congregational prayer, or one performing it alone over a deceased person, should stand toward the chest of the deceased if a man, and toward the middle if a woman.
أيوة. So the point that he mentioned from بأن يقوم الإمام والمنفرد عند الصدر الرجل ووسط المرأة. So regarding now giving concerning sifat salatul janaza, the sifat salatul janaza. So he mentioned here regarding that the imam that he stands for a male. He mentioned as-sadr. Now at the chest area or the upper half of the person's body. Now the chest area for the male, and for the female wasat would be
Waist.
To the waist for the female. So that's concerning that even though you have that view, it is a second view of about 4 aqwal as to where the person to be positioned, the imam. So they mention regarding that other that hadith that they mention that are more in line regarding rajul, that for the imam to stand at the head, where the head is of the male and the waist of the female. And I mentioned that view more in line with the hadith. That view is more in line with the hadith regarding for the male, ar-ras is head, and for the female, as mentioned. So that's concerned that matter. But ala kulliha, whatever is done, not that it is acceptable. Number is what is more preferred. So in this case, concerning what is more preferred, but whether he stand, this for them in whichever those position, it's still mujzi, it is still acceptable. Aywa.
As for those led in prayer, they should stand behind the imam, and it is an act of the sunnah to stand in 3 rows. One begins with saying the opening takbir and then seeks refuge with Allah from shaitan, directly following saying takbir.
Aywa, pause. Then they mention regarding concerning that of those things they mentioned that of the sunnah, or that thing to be jaiz, or the thing to be, is that as for those, the sufuf, the rows, that to be placed into 3 rows. Now, so you have a discussion between so yesterday that hadith that discussed concerning putting that all the hadith they are somewhat criticized. The hadith regarding of the 3 rows that they are all criticized. Now, but so you have that a discussion between the ulama regarding concerning that particular matter based upon the 3 rows matter. But if the hadith are said the hadith are somewhat discussed and criticized regarding the authenticity, so not to go some all that in a person have to have 3 rows and not less. You cannot go below 3 rows. So for example, you have 10 people present, then you have to divide them into 3 rows. So if you have 3 people, then each in a row by themselves. You understand? That's for the view of those who say 3. What is that? The hadith that discuss the hadith that they are criticized, that they are lined up without going to takalluf, without going overboard. That a person must achieve 3 rows. So depending on the amount of people that is there, if you can, la bas. If the person cannot, then they pray as they are. They pray as they are. Aywa.
Following the takbir, one doesn't say the opening invocation, then one recites the basmala and the surah of Al-Fatiha. After that, one is to say the second takbir and ask Allah to confer His blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just as it is recited in Tashahhud.
Also regarding concerning that, say mention concerning that after Allahu Akbar, in the first takbirah, then a person reads Surah Al-Fatiha, then Allahu Akbar, again is said, then the person will do as-salat upon the Prophet ﷺ. As for this particular salat, even Shaykh Al-Bani rahimahullah mentioned that there's no specific hadith regarding how is it to be said in Salatul Janaza. So most can somewhat use at-tashahhud, or concerning that Salatul Ibrahim. Salatul Ibrahim. So there's nothing that is specific that regarding what is the actual wording to be used regarding this dua for the Prophet Islam regarding Salatul Janazah. Now, so the one which is the more common, what is used, the one that is known and used in the Salah. Aywa.
Then one is to say the third takbir and pray Allah for the deceased with the invocations reported to have been observed by the Prophet ﷺ in this regard. The following is derived from such prophetic invocations. O Allah, forgive those of us who are living and those of us who are dead, those of us who are present and those of us who are absent, our young and our old, our male and our female. Verily you know our return and our residence, and you are over all things omnipotent. O Allah, to whomsoever of us you give life, grant him life as a follower of Islam, and whomsoever of us you cause death, cause him death as a believer. O Allah, do not withhold from us the reward for showing patience upon his death, and do not leave us to go astray after him after his death. O Allah, forgive him, have mercy upon him, give him peace, pardon him, receive him with honor, make his grave spacious, and wash him with water, ice and snow. Cleanse him from sins and faults as white as a white garment is cleansed from impurity. Requite him with an abode that is more excellent than his abode, and with a mate better than his mate. Admit him to paradise and protect him from the torture of the grave or the torment of the fire, according to another narration, and make his grave spacious and grant him light therein.
So what is mentioned regarding concerning the dua for the deceased, that what can be said. So the third thing would be done, the third takbirah is the supplication for the deceased. And the Shaykh Hafidullah that mentioned these supplication, that most of these hadith, that they are authentic, regarding concerning these hadith, that they are authentic, even though these are about three separate hadiths. There are both several hadith that have been somewhat mentioned. The person used concerning of those dua, those supplication, accordingly for the deceased. Aywa.
If the deceased is a female, the invocation will be thus, O Allah, forgive her, referring to her in the whole invocation. On the other hand, if the deceased is a child, the invocation will be as follows. O Allah, make him precede his parents to paradise, and let him be saved. Grant him divine reward, and make him an accepted intercessor for them. O Allah, make their scales heavy with good deeds by him, and make the reward greater for showing patience for him. And join him with the righteous believers, and let him be in the care of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and protect him with your mercy from the punishment of the fire. Afterwards, those performing the prayer over the deceased must say takbir and wait a little, then say one taslim, turning their faces to the right.
So as we mentioned regarding this matter, is a discussion between the ulama regarding adad taslim fi salatul janazah. So those who mention that there's taslimatan, that there's two taslim, and those who mention that it is one taslim. Even I mentioned that somewhat Ibn Munthir rahimahullah mentioned ajmahu ala anna as-salat يعني الجنازة من اقتصر على تسليمة واحد جائزة. That one taslim, it is jaiz. Nam, so one is wajib and the other one is mustahab. But you find that those who restrict just to one taslim, so whatever the imam does that you're praying with, you follow him. Whatever the imam does, you follow him. Just to add another matter that they mentioned, that of the regarding concerning the takbirat, those are all that if the imam exceed 4, you're not to follow him. So those of the ulama, the fuqaha, they are all concerned, they see it as that what is the salatul janazah, it is 4 takbirat. If the imam exceed, you are not to follow him. So one of the, so you find that Ahmed al-Hanbali, because you see that you can do more than, you can exceed 4 takbirat. All that you follow the imam. So regarding 5, yes. But then you find others who cannot. The cut-off point for them is 5 takbirat. Both said, you have some narration that meant that exceed this. So the general thing concerned that the person concerned that either if he owes that follow the imam as he prays, even though he wants to go and exceeding 5 is not done today. as a practice. As a practice, that is not per se done that much regarding concerning Salatul Janaza, is more concerning 4 takbirat. But if the Imam, so the mention is also the Imam also in a second matter, that in Taslim, if he say Assalamu, so the Salam will be Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. So you can say Assalamu alaikum and also Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. So you mention here 1 Taslim. So the 1 Taslim aliyah and Yamini on his right. So you mention Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Even also mention that slight move to his face. Slight move, not a full turn. So you have that discussion regarding, but ideal, the turn to the right as mentioned, that to his right. Aywa.
As for the one who misses a part of the funeral prayer, he should join the prayer performing what is left thereof with the congregation led by the Imam. Then when the Imam ends prayer with Taslim, one can perform the part one has missed in the same manner performed in this prayer. However, if one fears that people may carry the coffin and leave immediately after the funeral prayer, and thus one misses the funeral procession, one can just say the missing takbir. Successively, saying nothing in between them. Then end the prayer with Taslim. On the other hand, if one misses performing the funeral prayer over the deceased before the burial, one can perform it at his grave. As for those who are not present in the town of the deceased and are informed of his death, they are to perform the absent prayer with the intention of performing the funeral prayer over the deceased.
So as is mentioned regarding after the point that I mentioned regarding that one concern that at the end of the salat, then not immediately for people to move, but the people somewhat they wait until the coffin has been moved before they start to move around. Now, especially concerning, you might find that those who may join in late, so at least they can make up for that salah. As he mentioned, that came after, so the general thing is concerned that, and also that the Shaykh can mention the permissibility of one who have missed some of the takbirat that they can make up after. So you have that discussion regarding making up after for those who have missed a portion of the Salat al-Janaza. Then he mentioned regarding that we will kind of somewhat discuss this more, concerned that I mentioned regarding because man khana ghaiban an balad alladhi fihi al-mayt, that if the person who, which is referred to as Salat and I mentioned concerned now, one will discuss maybe concerning the permissibility also. He discussed first the permissibility of the person who missed the entire Salah. Salatul Janaza, you came, but already prayed the Salah. Then that person, that it is allowed for him to make the Salat over the person's grave. So the person, if you go to the graveyard, then he can make the Salat there. So it shows also that so that's the person who missed the Salat, then it can be done at his over his grave. So that's concerning that, as in the case concerning the hadith of Abu Hurairah anhu, that in the Al-Bukhari Muslim, where the Prophet ﷺ, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, that they said a qissas al-marra, that كانت تقوم المسجد, a woman that used to look after the masjid, that when she died, that when she died, they did not inform them because it was late at night when she died, and they didn't want to wake him and to disturb him. So they kind of somewhat buried her and did the salah. So when he woke up, they informed him, alayhi salam, regarding of her passing. Then he, alayhi salam, went with some others who missed the salat, and they prayed over her grave. So he showed the permissibility of this particular act. The khilaf between the ulama, of those who hold that if the person miss it, he is not allowed to pray at all. And that's the matter of the Ahnaf and the Malikiyah, that the person miss the Salah, then khalas, he's not allowed to pray over the grave. And they mention, and their view of the proof that they use, that some amongst them that use, they said, regarding the Prophet ﷺ praying over that lady after she was buried, they said that is something which is specific to him. It's something which is special for him. This is khususiyat.
But he took some...
So but that's the claim that make. So the ulama cannot refute that claim. They refute that claim that this is something which is specific to him per se. So, but that's the claim that they make to justify their position. So that's of the view. But others who hold that it is allowed that one can pray over the deceased after they've been buried. And they mention regarding concern that this matter. So they mention what's the length of time that you have that you can do so. So the Hanabila all concerned, you have a month. To do so, you can go and pray after someone died and you missed it. You have a month for you can go and pray over their grave, or pray at the grave. Then you have other ulama that says there's no time set for them. There's no time set. Some mention that you are allowed until the body until it starts to rot. But the question, how would you know? Or can someone estimate? But ala kulli hal, that there's some concession regarding the persons allowed to pray over the deceased over their grave if they miss the Salah. So that's concerned of those matters. The other matter they discussed that we'll kind of somewhat postpone to next week is concerning Salatul Ghaib. Regarding concerning the janazah for the person who is missing or the person who is not present. So the general thing concerning the person, the janazah, the person's body is present. But we might find a case where a Muslim that you find, we'll discuss what they refer to as Salatul Ghaib, the one who is missing. He's not there. So we'll discuss concerning that matter with what's attached with and also regarding concerning other individuals regarding the person that we mentioned that the Muslim was said to be from Ahlul Bidah, praying over him, not praying over him. That matter regarding the person who was killed in a had. The person of Duyun. Al-Kabair, people are known to do sin openly. What's the ahkam regarding performing Salatul Janazah for them? With this, so inshallah ta'ala next week we'll cover those particular topic. Wa billahi ta'ala tawfiq wa hadhihi as-sabil wa akhir alhamdulillah.